Shalom. My name is Isaac ben Israel, and I'm the priest of the United Congregation of Israel. You know, during this time of year, we get bombarded with questions from those who truly believe that they are worshiping Christ on December 25th. But as we read our Bibles, we find out that Christ was not born on December 25th, but someone else was. His name was Nimrod, and he was said to be born on the 25th and was said to be reborn as a full-grown evergreen tree. As the story goes, he married his mother, and she told the story of his rebirth. Now, as we examine all of the pagan religions and customs, we find out that December 25th was a very important day among the pagans. The reason why December 24th is the shortest day of the year. They called it the Day of the Dying Sun, which would make December 25th the rebirth of the sun. And that means rebirth of the sun S-U-N, not the sun S-O-N. Now, we can clearly read in the New Testament and find out that the Messiah was not born in the month of December. Luke chapter 1 and verse 26 says, "And in the 6th month, the angel Gabriel was sent from Elohim unto a city of Galilee named Nazareth, to a virgin espoused to a man whose name was Joseph of the house of David, and the virgin's name was Mary." Now in verse 26, it clearly says, "and in the 6th month." Now, it doesn't matter if we use the Gregorian calendar, which is the calendar system that we use today, or if we use the Hebrew calendar, which is the calendar system that they would have been using during that time, starting from the 6th month and counting 9 months, because it still takes 9 months to have a baby, just as it did then, it would not equal up to December. Remember, the Messiah was born during the warm time of the year because he was born outside. So now, examining clearly in the scripture that the Messiah was not born during this time of year, then that means we have to do some research and find out just what is it that is being worshiped during this time of year.
Merry Christmas, or Merry Mithra. Narration by Lael Israel. Christmas, whose birthday is it? With all the tradition, the legacy, with all of our childhood memories, have we ever really thought, have we ever researched whose birthday it really is? Christ's date of birth was not even in the winter season, but someone else's certainly was. Nimrod was described in Genesis 10, verse 9, as a mighty hunter before Yahweh.
Genesis chapter 11, verse 4, told us of he and his followers' intended plans for supremacy, quoted as, "And they said, let us build us a city and a tower, whose top may reach unto heaven. And let us make us a name, lest we become scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth."
Nimrod's Tower of Babel was not completed, but his attempt at making this name great did not end after this plan was foiled. Both Nimrod and his followers were determined through reality or myth to make his name great. Nimrod began to be worshipped in this tree form as a god. This tree is worshipped, and its adornment was spoken of in Jeremiah chapter 10, verses 2 through 4. Jeremiah verse 2 states,
"Thus said Yahweh, learn not the way of the heathen, for the customs of the people are vain. For one cutteth a tree out of the forest, they deck it with silver and with gold."
Nimrod, ruler of Babylon, the day of his death and rebirth as a full-grown evergreen tree. Nimrod worship grew, and he was worshipped as a sun god, while Semiramis, his mother and wife, began to be worshipped as the mother of God. Thus began today's Mary worship. Regrettably, this myth did not end in Babylon. As nations intermingled through conquests and contracts, this worship of the sun god continued. His name was often changed to suit the nation, but the customs and traditions associated with this sun god worship was continued largely unchanged. As this form of pagan worship was introduced to the Romans, it was quickly adopted. By this time, the sun god's name had been changed to Mithras. This sun god, Mithras, was thought to be the light of the world, and its religion was referred to as Mithraism, was considered to be a man's or a military religion. The Romans believed that it was Mithras that brought them victory, and their conquests and sacrifices to him prior to a battle was mandatory. Mithras' birthday, of course, also on December 25th, while the 24th at that time was the shortest day of the year, making the death of the sun. This date was so popular because, as with Nimrod, this date of December 25th has to do with the signs of the zodiac as well as the strength of the sun. The following day, being the 25th, marked the rebirth and the regaining of strength of their sun god and the sun. This astrology included the sun crossing the equator. This point was connected with the zodiac sign of Taurus the bull. This crossing point, point to point, created the symbol of the cross. This cross symbol had been in use since Babylonian times and was continued with the Romans. The cross symbol covered all of their shields during battle. So truly they held their god Mithras for protection before them in battle. Emperor Constantine saw a vision of the sun with the cross beneath it. This cross, or crux, worn by the Crusaders, was fashioned identically to that used by Imperial Rome and Babylon before it. The cross is simply the symbol of the sun god. There is no Hebrew word or root translated cross anywhere in the Old Testament scriptures. Each of the 24 times the Greek word Saturos is found in the New Testament, English Bibles mistranslate pole or stake as cross. The first one to do this was a Roman Catholic translator whose desire was to merge the Mithras cherished symbol into the church. Mithras worshippers also baptized their newborn children. Today it's called christening. This action marked the use of the forehead in the symbol of the cross, just as it's done in today's Catholicism in their Ash Wednesday procedures. Mithras' weekly holy day was called Sunday. It was held sacred because it was truly the day of the sun's day, their God's day. The leader of the Mithra rituals was referred to as the Father. The highest ranking father was referred to as Papa or Pope. This Pope was marked by his staff and pronounced ring and pointed hat, just as in today's Catholicism. Mithra's Mass included chanting, bells, candles, incense, and holy water, just like Catholicism today. Mithras and Catholicism, i.e., Christianity, equate. Even all of the 7 sacraments of Catholicism are the exact duplicate of those that are acknowledged in Mithras sacraments. The use of halos in Christianity today also directly descends from Mithraism. The halo represents the glow around the head of the sun god and his lesser gods as shown in Christian art. This is why we see Christian art that promotes pictures of Christ with a halo around his head. Catholicism and Masonry all have their roots in Mithraism. Mithraism was worshipped in a secretive fashion. Only men were initiated, and both initiation and services were held in dark, underground caves that involved sacrifice. They covered the walls of these caves with secret paintings depicting their god Mithras slaying the bull, that is, Taurus the bull in astrology. This is much like the cave-like dwellings in which members of the secret society of the Skull and Bones have their meetings at the elite Yale University. Many of the Mithras temples are still existent throughout Europe. Many Christian churches are built on top of the pagan temples. These caves were often referred to as grottos. Notre Dame University, popular for its sports, is also popular for its grotto, built to imitate those in Europe. These Christians call it the Cave of Candles, and today come to this cave to pray just like in Mithraism. The sad reality is that all of these types of actions within Christianity are completely accepted, and each of them, when questioned, are constantly explained away or just simply ignored. Each of us must make a choice as to whether we will follow the true teachings of the Hebrew Scriptures of the Bible or continue to follow the myths that were made up by man. We must choose to follow Yahweh or choose to follow Nimrod, Mithras, Zeus, Jupiter, or Jesus. All of these are pagan deities, all of them. Yahweh has but one way, His way.
Matthew chapter 7, verse 14. Enter you in at the strait gate, for wide is the gate, and broad is the way that leads to destruction, and many there be which go in thereat. Because strait is the gate, and narrow is the way which leads unto life, and few there be that find it.
Saturnalia. Saturnalia was the most important Roman festival, which contained a number of public rites and traditions. Saturnalia was an agricultural festival held in honor of the Roman god Saturn of seeds, sowing, and plenty. Thus, his name is derived from the Latin word satis, which means to sow. There were several ancient Roman pagan festivals in December, which accounts for our present holiday customs. Thanksgiving, which was held in December in the past, Christmas, Hanukkah, New Year's, and even Mardi Gras. Since the ancient pagans believed that the sun was dying on the shortest day of the year, called the winter solstice or Vermilia, a sacrificial appeal was made to the god Saturn to bless them with the rebirth of the sun god, which would return the sun. The heathens are dismayed at the signs of heaven and seek the vanities of the Christmas tree.
Learn not the way of the heathen, and be not dismayed at the signs of heaven, for the heathen are dismayed at them. Jeremiah chapter 10, verse 3.
Saturn eventually became associated to the Greek god Kronos. In Greek mythology, Kronos was one of the 12 titans who swallowed the first 5 of his children, but his wife Rhea saved the baby Zeus, who is the Roman god Jupiter, later dethroned Saturn and imprisoned him in the underworld with the other Titan gods, as the myth goes. Saturnalia determined the date of December 25th, as well as the nature of celebrations until Victorian times. Several festivals were held before the Saturnalia, like Consualia, which was the end of the sowing season festival held on December 15th in honor of Ceres. It's from Ceres that we get the word cereal. There was Dies Juvenalis, Day of the Juvenile, the coming of age for young men, held in mid-December as well. In fact, dating back to the days of Babylon, the Feast of Vermilia is celebrated on December 25th by most cultures in and around the Mediterranean. Ancient sources, such as the Epic of Gilgamesh and other unearthed archaeological records from Mesopotamia and Egypt, verifies that Nimrod married his mother Semiramis. She propagated the dogma that he returned to life as a full-grown evergreen tree that sprang from a dead tree stump overnight and left presents under the tree.
To whom then will you liken Elohim? Or what likeness will you compare unto him? The workman melts a graven image, and the goldsmith spreads it over with gold, and casts silver chains. He that is so impoverished that he has no oblation chooses a tree that will not rot. He seeks unto him a cunning workman to prepare a graven image that shall not be moved. Have you not known? Have you not heard? Has it not been told you from the beginning? Isaiah chapter 40, verses 18 through 20.
Semiramis claimed Nimrod was reincarnated through the newborn infant, deifying him and herself in the process. This was also the origin of the worship of the Queen of Heaven and her sacrificial cakes spoken of in Scripture. Replacing the mythological god Saturn, their sacrifices of cookies and milk are offered up to Santa today. Let's not forget, Santa knows when you're sleeping or not, and he knows if you are good or bad, so he must be a god.
The children gather wood, and the fathers kindle the fire, and the women knead their dough to make cakes to the Queen of Heaven, and to pour out drink offerings unto other gods, that they may provoke me to anger. Do they provoke me to anger, said Yahweh? Do they not provoke themselves to the confusion of their own faces? Jeremiah chapter 7, verses 18 through 19.
Most cultures in the Mediterranean had religious festivals around the winter solstice. For millennia, ancient Egyptians celebrated the birth and rebirth of the sun at this time. It was called the Feast of Sol Invictus, the Day of the Unconquered Sun. This December 25th celebration was kept particularly by Roman soldiers when the Emperor Constantine converted the empire to Christianity due to a vision in the sun, and later changed the day of worship from the Sabbath to Sunday, the first day, still dedicated to the worship of the sun god Lucifer, the light bearer. Although the dates of the Roman Saturnalia celebration varied, Saturnalia was celebrated on December 17th originally. During the days of the Roman Empire, Saturnalia was extended to a week, December 17th through the 24th. But the similarities between Saturnalia and modern Christmas are too numerous to be denied. Saturnalia was focused on merrymaking, which is the reason why the words merry and jolly are used almost exclusively at Christmas time. Wreaths, garlands, and evergreens were widely used in Rome. Holly was a favorite because of the colorful red berries and deep green leaves, since the colors for this festival was red, green, and white. Flames were an important feature of both Christmas and Saturnalia, where candles were favorites. Yule logs, fireplace hearths, and bonfires were kindled to drive off evil spirits and rekindle the new solar year. A 1998 BBC News article entitled "You'll Never Believe It" indicated Yule was the ancient name for the traditional Celtic fire festival, which marked the winter solstice and celebrated the return of the light after the longest night of the year. Even the ashes of the Yule log were thought to have magical powers. Feasts abounded with continual eating and drunkenness. Remember, wine was especially important to Romans because of Bacchus, the Roman god of wine and merriment. They served an array of rich and unclean foods like sea hedgehogs, shellfish, and of course, the pig. The Romans indulged, giving themselves up to wild folly, and thus ancient Christmas merrymaking was much more like Mardi Gras, which was originally celebrated on the last day of Saturnalia. Acca Larentia, called the goddess Lupa because of her loose moral ways, was honored on this day, giving mortal men the rights to engage in amoral activities like orgies, sexual partner swapping, and homosexuality. The celebrations of this ancient festival was downright licentious. And yes, these are the same festivals as our modern-day year-end holidays. It's also the reason why the New England Puritans banned the celebration of Christmas by law in 1652, calling it heathenish and superstitious. As Roman culture became increasingly vulgar, so did Saturnalia, with cross-dressing, masquerades, and gambling. Another established Saturnalia tradition was to cast lots among the people, to choose a king of Saturnalia, or lord of misrule. He represented the god Saturn as he ruled over the festival, and his orders were to be obeyed no matter how bizarre. Each family also chose a mock king to preside over the household to assure that everyone had riotous fun, but sometimes he would take advantage of the situation to belittle his superiors. Saturnalia was a very public and highly commercial holiday where the government, schools, and businesses all closed, including the law courts and the Senate, just like today. People of all classes, the rich and poor, were considered equals, and household slaves were actually served by masters. Young children might even head the family, which was important in patrician Rome during these backwards celebrations. Gift-giving symbolized the redistribution of the wealth from the rich to the poor during the season of the greatest hardship to the poor, so big feasts were generally laid on by the rich to appease the gods and to feed their poor neighbors. Gifts and presents of all sorts were exchanged in Rome during Saturnalia. Dolls, or little claiborne-like images of pastry known as sigillaria, were popular gifts to boys and girls. Fruit, tapers, and candles were popular gifts to friends. The family was very important for Saturnalia. The Romans would rest and relax with family and close friends, renew bonds, and reminisce about old experiences. People participated in gaming, jokes, and letting loose, with frequent partying, where they wore paper or soft hats at banquets to signify informality. In England, these hats are an important feature of the family Christmas dinner. In America, the paper hats can be found at family birthday celebrations and are important to New Year's celebrations globally. Music and dancing was key to Saturnalia merrymaking, which is yet another feature of Christmas and New Year's celebrations. Christmas is perceived as a religious celebration, with the community coming together to spiritually honor the infant deity, the Christ, when in fact, Christmas is simply pagan Saturnalia and Brumalia festivals to honor numerous reigning deities born at Babylon. Even shortly before Christ's return, Yahweh will send two angels, his two witnesses from heaven, to give mankind his final warning, but they will kill them and continue their Christmas traditions.
And when they shall have finished their testimony, the beast that ascends out of the bottomless pit shall make war against them, and shall overcome them, and kill them. And they that dwell upon the earth shall rejoice over them, and make merry, and shall send gifts one to another, because these two prophets tormented them that dwelt on the earth. Revelation chapter 11, verses 7 through 10.
Begotten by a mortal man, Nimrod, the Christmas spirit is indeed provoked by a spirit, but according to history, archaeology, and scripture, the Christmas spirit is an ancient lying spirit sent to deceive all mankind. Partake not of her sacrificial table, nor should you drink from her intoxicating pagan cup.
Welcome to the Watchman segment of our program. Now, you know there are a lot of things that we overlook during this so-called time of the year of celebrating Christmas. One of which is the fact that Santa is a god. Now, I know it sounds really odd to hear that, but consider all the aspects of it. He's omnipotent. He's omnipresent. He can be in all places and know all things. all at an instant. He knows if you've been good or bad. Who else would know these things but a God? Keep in mind also that he has these elf characters, which are magical beings somewhat like angels. And kids are to make requests unto him for the things that they wish to receive. Are these not prayers that the kids are making? And then once the parents purchase all of these gifts, they then give all of the credit to Santa, meaning that he has provided all of these things. You have prayed unto him. He has used his magical helpers, if you will, to be omnipotent and omnipresent to provide all of these things for all of the people of the world. Now, I'm going to read something to you in Isaiah chapter 14 so we can deal with this whole thing of Santa being a god. Isaiah chapter 14 and verse 12. It says, "How are you fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How are you cut down to the ground, which did weaken the nations? For you have said in your heart, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of Elohim. I will also sit upon the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north. I will ascend above the height of the clouds. I will be just like the Most High." And what we see is Lucifer has a tendency to set up mirror images to make things look just like the real thing. Now you consider the mirror images that Lucifer has presented unto the world. Yahweh has given the earth the Sabbath day, the day to worship on. That Sabbath day is the seventh day. What Lucifer gave us was a mirror image, which looks like that day. He gave us Sunday, which is the first day, which is actually the total opposite of the Sabbath day. So, and if you ever look in the mirror, you'll find out it looks exactly like you, but you'll find that the things are switched around. So they're not on the right side that they're supposed to be on. Let's read something also in Jeremiah chapter 10, and we're going to read verses 1 through 5. Jeremiah 10 and verse 1 says, "Hear you the word which Yahweh speaks unto you, O house of Israel. Thus says Yahweh, learn not the way of the heathen, and be not dismayed at the signs of heaven, for the heathen are dismayed at them. For the customs of the people are vain. For one cutteth a tree out of the forest, the work of the hands of the workman with the axe. They deck it with silver and with gold. They fasten it with nails and with hammers, that it move not. They are upright as the palm tree, but speak not. They must needs be born, because they cannot go." Now, when we talk about decking it with silver and gold, you look at the color of the ornaments that are all around the Christmas tree, and you have silver and gold ornaments. Back in the day, they also used to get the little stringy tinsel and spread it all around the tree. This is written in Jeremiah 10. Please understand that the Messiah is not born yet. This further lets us know that this is of pagan origin. These are the customs of the heathen. These are vain customs that have absolutely nothing to do with the worship of the creator of all things. I want to read something else to you in Exodus chapter 20, and we're going to start that at verse 1. And it says, "And Elohim spake all these words, saying, I am Yahweh, your Elohim, which have brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. You shall have no other gods before me." And we think this thing is fun, that we have allowed our kids to worship the adversary, the devil, calling him Santa. But these things are not fun unto Yahweh. Remember, he says, "I am a very jealous Elohim." Verse 4, "You shall not make unto you any graven image, or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. You shall not bow down yourself to them, nor serve them. And people will tell you that I do not worship my Christmas tree. I do not worship these things. I don't bow down to it. But one of our brothers that we often speak to about the word, it gets pretty interesting when you talk to a lot of people about these things, because different people see things different ways. And a brother brought up a very important point. And he said, how do you pick up a gift from up under the Christmas tree without bowing down to it? So we clearly see that this is in violation of the commandments that were given unto us. For it says, you shall not bow down to these things. And we know that the Messiah was not born on December 25th. We can clearly read in the Old Testament and find that they were keeping this celebration of Nimrod's rebirth here in Jeremiah chapter 10, and the Messiah was not here. We also find that during this time of year, they will tell you that there's often the Christmas spirit. But when we look upon this Christmas spirit, we have to examine the things of this spirit. Not too long ago, there was a couple of days ago that a man went in to try and get some DVD players for his family because he didn't want to show up without gifts. He ended up being detained by the authorities at that place and ended up getting in a chokehold and dying in the parking lot of a Walmart for 2 DVDs because he did not want to show up on December 25th without a gift for his family. Therein lies the spirit of Christmas. For some people, it's a joyous thing for those that have money. For those that don't, the spirit of Christmas drives them to do some very horrible things. And right after Christmas, of course, you find January the 1st, which will be the worship of the two-headed god Janus. This is also celebrated in the church, for they have watch night services where they so-called are watching for the new year. And counting down unto that, they say, turn your back. They count down and then say, now turn forward. And everybody starts shouting. And that is supposed to bring in the new year. And what we have done is just done a mock ritual unto the two-headed god Janus. And all of these things were given unto us from the church. So consider what it is you worship. Consider whether or not you truly want to please the creator of all things. And understand, he is a very jealous Elohim. He is not pleased at these customs of man. I pray that you will take these things to your heart. Let them guide you. Let them lead you onto that narrow path that leads unto salvation. My name is Isaac Ben Israel, and that's all we're going to do for the day. Shalom.